Hello and welcome to Pesto Comics. So, if you're listening to the audio or watching the video, I think we're going to tailor this presentation to work in both, but I highly recommend, if you can at some point, to visit our Substack, pestocomics.substack.com, and check out the slides just so that you can get some context as to what's being referred to if you're just listening to the audio. That said, this is a presentation that I actually had done at Thought Bubble. However, I failed to record the audio correctly. My lav mic wasn't turned on, I'm assuming, and I just recorded a blank hour-long session with no audio. So I'm doing a re-recording of that presentation now, and actually maybe a little tighter and more well-suited for online consumption. So this might end up working out pretty well, I think. So this presentation, Crowdfunding Indie Comics, it's an overview for creators. What kind of creators? More the creators that are in the early stages of their crowdfunding journey. Maybe they've never launched a Kickstarter before, or have just done one or two, or maybe they tried Indiegogo or something like that. And you're still early in your journey. You're going to get the most out of this presentation. However, if you're someone who has done half a dozen campaigns already, there still might be something to learn, as I may be doing something different than you're doing. And yeah, I'm always happy for the dialogue. By all means, let me know if there's anything that you agree with, disagree with in the comments. I'd be happy to answer you as those pop up. So yeah, we'll do this kind of like won't be quite live, but I'm happy to do an ongoing Q&A for this. I appreciate you being here. Let's start. For those of you who don't know, my name is Adriano. I've been writing indie comics for a little while, and I'm a super backer on Kickstarter with well over 900 campaigns backed now. And I'm a backer favorite on my latest 5 campaigns that I've launched, the latest being Big Smoke Pulp, which, as of this recording, is still live for a handful more days and doing pretty well. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. But I have campaigns scheduled to launch every other month. I'm going to be taking these tenants and following through with them frequently. So I hope you get something out of this. And yeah, you'll be able to see everything that I'm speaking to today put in action in my campaigns. So feel free to follow me on Kickstarter as well. So what are we talking about today? There's a few things. We're going to go through the whole process of launching a Kickstarter from beginning to end, but we're going to do it in a step-by-step kind of way, like systematic. There's an order of operations to how you do things, and we're going to follow that. So of course, what do you start with? Day one, of course, right? You start with day one. So first thing you got to do is decide where your crowdfunding is going to be. There's a few options available. There's Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Zoop, Crowdfunder. I put that up because it's Canadian. I always want them to do well. Backerkit. There's a whole bunch more that are always coming up every other day. Backerkit's actually a tool that you can use within Kickstarter, but they also have their own crowdfunding platform now. It's a little mix of both. Each have their advantages. However, if I'm just starting out, I'm going to pick Kickstarter over all of them. It's just has the largest fan base specifically for comics, and I'll get into that right now. Comics perform very well on Kickstarter, so much so that they have the highest success rate of any category on Kickstarter. Games is still the biggest revenue generator, but in terms of campaigns that launch and successfully fund, we're over 2/3 of comics will be launched and funded on Kickstarter. And really, that's something that you're not going to find anywhere else. That said, going quickly back to that previous slide, Indiegogo has a different set of backers that you can promote to. So again, if you're finding that you're not finding your crowd on Kickstarter, feel free to check out Indiegogo. Feel free to check out Crowdfunder. And Backerkit actually has a lot of events they like to do. One is Comictopia, where they really push comics for a month and they really try to get every single thing that launches funded that month. So yeah, it's somewhere else that you could try. And if all of this is feeling very overwhelming to you, I would recommend Zoop. Their fees can be a little bit higher, but the reason they're higher is because you're getting an all-in service with them. They'll help you set up your campaign page. They'll help you with fulfillment to a degree. They take the whole service and you tell them what your product is and they'll get it set up and launched. So you'll find that a lot of the campaigns on Zoop are actually well-known creators that maybe are used to working with publishers and that, and they'll take their work to Zoop because they can do a set it and forget it. Here's my product. Here's my comic. Please go out and find my audience. So there's advantages to all of them. Again, I'm going to focus on Kickstarter for this talk, but you can use whatever you want. And a lot of the tenets that we're going to be talking about today will apply to all of them. So what do you do before you start? You pick your platform of choice. Again, we're going to say Kickstarter. So the first thing you want to do is back some projects. as much as it's nice to just get on there and launch, really you need to be seen as part of the community. And it's not just for the sake of making sales. It's also that you want to help out your fellow creators and hopefully they'll help you in kind, but really you should just be on there because you're part of the comic community. And part of that is backing projects. That said, you don't need to get the premium package of every campaign, right? You can get a digital tier. You can even just back. Usually there's a donation tier that you can just offer your support, but whatever works, right? Like just whatever was within your means, but it's definitely important that you back some projects. There is a little bit of a stigma on folks who launch with zero backed campaigns, as it's almost as though you're doing like a smash and grab coming in. So pretty important that you are part of the community by backing a lot of campaigns. In doing that, you're going to be able to find out what's popular on Kickstarter and you'll be able to gauge your own success based on finding campaigns that might be similar to yours, or at least knowing if you haven't started, knowing maybe where to target and seeing what seems to do very well. Most importantly, though, is you got to start priming your audience. Even if you don't actually have much to show, you have to start getting your audience into it saying, hey, I have something planned very soon, and letting them know that Kickstarter is, or whatever platform is where it's going to be, right? And getting people in the headspace of, I'm going to be there, be ready to find me there. And then, of course, the last step is start planning your project, right? Is it done? Is your comic ready? Do you have all your marketing in place? Do you even know where to start, right? Like just getting a very loose idea of what this looks like in your head, maybe when you might launch, that kind of information. Just start planning now, right? Before you even start, have a vision. So when we talk about following what's popular, go on the Discover page. You can quickly see how many projects are live under the comics category. And you could play with the sorting and see what's most popular, what's most funded. Those two may not be the same, right? And you could see what is going on in the community and how things are shaping up. Some things I've witnessed in the past, there's a few genres that do better than others. NSFW stuff, right? Always does well if it's done correctly. There are some guidelines you have to follow and some lines you have to walk. But if you do it well and you're telling a good story, you can do really well with that kind of content. Sci-fi always does really well. Westerns, slice of life, horror, all that stuff. It does very well on Kickstarter. So if you're in that set of genres, I think you are in the right place. If you're doing hero comics, those tend to do a little less well on Kickstarter. Doesn't mean they can't be done. And it doesn't mean that you're going to go here and you're going to fail. It just means that you have to work a little bit harder to convince people to come onto Kickstarter. Generally, what people are looking for is things that aren't in the big two so much, right? So hero comics, you're fighting with Batman and Spider-Man and these books that are going for $3-4, maybe more nowadays. They're relatively cheap, and that's something you're just not going to be able to compete with, right? Like you're an individual creator. So doing something that's in their domain may be a little more difficult, where if you stick to something a little bit outside, something a little bit different, you may find your audience a little bit easier. There's a workaround to that, and that's mixing genres, right? If you're really are dead set on doing a superhero book, that's fine. But maybe do an SFW superhero book, right? Do a Western superhero, something that kind of meshes these things together. And yeah, you may see some success because again, now you're at least bringing something different to the table that isn't just capes and tights. So again, no, not saying you can't do it. You'll find examples on here that have done well. Again, it's just an uphill climb. So keep that in mind. The other thing you could do rather than just looking at the Discover page is you can go on a website called Kicktraq. So Kicktraq actually has an extension in Chrome that you can install. So while you're on Kickstarter, it'll actually give you stats on the campaign that you're looking at. And if you use these two kind of interchangeably, you can see what the trends are, right? What the daily trends, the monthly trends, kind of everything, and get a good sense of what's performing well, right? So at least when you're trying to find out what's popular, there's a lot of tools that'll take that information and tell you explicitly, this is what's popular, this is what's doing well. And yeah, it won't be that hard for you to find out where you land and everything. So finding your audience. I put this into 3 different buckets, even though 2 of them are similar. So the first one is social media, right? And however you may feel about social media, it's still one of the best ways to spread the word and find people that aren't in your circle, right? Like people you don't know personally. The best way to find them is going to be social media outside of going on the street corner and screaming and hoping that somebody listens to you. That's effectively what you're doing with social media, but you're doing it on a global scale. So you don't have to be everywhere. I choose to spread myself thin, but if you feel that you're comfortable on one or two, you just want to be on Blue Sky and Instagram, that's fine, right? Like you pick your platform, whatever you can put the energy into, that's the one you should go for. So yeah, social media is pretty good, but just be aware that it is a time suck, right? Like you are there to promote your products and be a part of the community, but you don't need to get into like big fights. You don't need to check it every hour. You don't need to jump on every single trend. Like just check in here and there. Make sure to push your campaigns. Make sure to help other people promote their campaigns. Just be a part of the community. Chat with people. Like don't just constantly be selling because then you're easy to ignore, right? Like you want to be a part of the media you're in, which is exactly why I mentioned, maybe don't spread yourself out too thin because it'll be a lot harder to build that sense of community. The other way to do it, and probably the strongest one I would say is your newsletter. So if you're watching this on Substack, I thank you very much. This is a perfect example. But you don't know what's going to happen with social media in the sense of the algorithms change. We've seen it with Instagram where posts don't make it out to certain people. And it's all kind of pay to play, right? If you're willing to pay money, suddenly it shows up to the people that are following you, who you would expect to be able to see, what you posted, but they just don't for whatever reason. A newsletter, you have their email, it's going to hit their email. So you know it. They may not open it, but at least it's made it to them. Where all of these social media outlets, like you just don't know who you're speaking to. It's important to build that newsletter base. And you know that if they're willing to provide an email and follow you, then they're probably going to be some of the better and closer fans that you'd get than those that are scrolling through social media and just happen to, pass by you. A newsletter follower is actually someone who's a little more dedicated to you and your cause. So pretty important that you find that audience. And last of all, of course, is just people in person. And you do have to be a little bit shameless, right? So go to your friends, your family, your coworkers, your enemies, anyone that you think might take a look at your campaign. Tell them, right? If this is what you're doing with your life, don't be ashamed of it. Go out there, let people know. And by letting them know, at least they can help you in some form or fashion. They may not back your campaign, but maybe they'll tell someone who does. Maybe they know someone who's really into this, right? This is how you're going to make connections. You have to be a lot more open about spreading the word and sharing with people. Don't be afraid to let people know in person. Hey, I make comics and I have one that's actually launching on Kickstarter. You want to check it out? Here's a link, right? Be shameless about it. Just spread it to everybody. What are we spreading to everybody? Kickstarter Prelaunch. So I go against the grain here. Kickstarter, in the ideal world, wants you to do a pre-launch 2 to 3 weeks before the actual launch of your campaign, right? They expect it to be like a quick ramp up and like a big celebration when you launch. I tend to go the other way, and I've tried it both ways. I've tried it their way, and then I've tried it the really long, it's just the page where you're collecting followers, because the Kickstarter theory here is that you don't want people to forget that they followed, right? So they click follow, and then a week later, it pops up in their email, and it never really leaves their mind space. That's the theory. I think realistically, people click follow and then they forget. So if they click a week ago or they click 3 months ago, I don't think they remember any better, right? All that you need is them to click that so that when you hit launch, they get notified. And that's the whole point of the notification, is to remind them that, hey, my campaign is live. Now is the time to support it. So I would go as soon as you have a teaser image. And now actually this page doesn't show the whole thing, but there's actually space to do even more information. You can have preview pages and a little bit from your story page on Kickstarter. You can have it on the pre-launch page. So there's even more you can share before you get started, which is wonderful. But yeah, so as soon as you have something to share though, I would get that pre-launch page up and start getting people to click it. That said, when they click it, it's a blind follow. So you don't know if they clicked it, who clicked it, anything. You just see the number go up, right? The number of followers. So you lose out in that sense that where your newsletter, you know everybody that's in your newsletter. You don't know who's actually following your campaign. But the key thing here is that they're all going to get a notification, right? If they have the app installed on their phone, it comes up as a notification. They'll get an email. Like they'll know that your campaign is live. That's what's important, right? However, there is a alternative, or rather something to use in kind that does satisfy that issue, which is the Backerkit Prelaunch, right? So in Backerkit Prelaunch, you actually do get their emails, right? And once they're in your system, your email system, then you have their email for future campaigns, assuming they don't unsubscribe. So collecting emails here is actually pretty key because it's something that you can use a lot going forward, right? You know who it is and you know exactly who is following you. And then you can see if they follow and did they back the campaign. So it's a huge advantage in being able to do this. However, the advantage comes at a cost, right? So just be aware that there is a cost to Backerkit. It offers a whole host of tools that, especially the more you get into this whole game of doing crowdfunding, they're invaluable, right? It's well worth the cost. It'll save you so much time. But if you're just starting out and you're trying to save everywhere you can, this might be one of the places where you could do that. But just keep this in mind for down the road. All right. So we're on to the next step, page prep. So I mentioned that you could use elements from your story page on your pre-launch page. So where do you get that information from your story page? How do you know what to put on there? When you're doing your research, when you're looking on the Discover page or going on Kicktraq, pay attention to how those story pages are built, right? Steal what works. Look at the table of contents, see how everything's laid out, in what order. Look at what makes sense to you. I have a specific way I like to do it. And I think a lot of folks do the same thing, which is you really want to grab their attention as quickly as possible. Keep in mind that we're talking about comic book readers here, right? So if you start with a large amount of text or you start with your life story or any of that, you may not capture them as quickly as you would if you were to just start with a very quick welcome and then some preview pages. Just get right into it, right? Like maybe I start with a cover and then preview pages, right? I want people to see this is what you're backing. If I catch them then and they seem into it, then I start getting into the rest of the information, right? Rewards that are available, any variant covers, shipping information, all that business comes after the fact. What comes first is this is the comic. This is what you're going to see. And that's what's really important. You want them to know what they are backing and what they're into. You want to prove to them that you are giving them a professional quality product. And you can only do that if you do it right away, because if you wait to do it, you may just lose them entirely. So when I'm talking about what is a preview, this is the difference, right? I mentioned that you launch your pre-launch as soon as you have anything to do it. Once you have your teaser image, throw it up there, get it ready. However, do not launch your Kickstarter until you have something to show, something complete, end to end, right? Like you could do layouts as you can see on the slide here. And if you're listening, I have a really roughed in sketch version of the page and then a completed page with lettering and coloring and everything. This is what it looks like in the book. It's a completely finished version of the preview pages, right? So I opt for usually 4 to 5 pages, something that story-wise, but it leaves a little bit of a cliffhanger as well. So if you're doing like the first act of your book, that's a good example that you're leading them into the story and then having them wanting more. But you got to give them something. You got to show them this is the book that you are buying, and this is what it will look like when it arrives at your door or in your inbox, however you're delivering it. But you want them to know the product they're going to see. So very important. Preview pages, do not launch without them. Like I know the whole idea is you want to get your funding to make the comic, but you have to put some skin in the game. And that means getting those preview pages ready and done before you ever launch. The other thing you got to do, so going down the page, we're talking about rewards. It may seem strange to put rewards in the story when the rewards are also on the rewards page. It seems counterintuitive, but there's a very good reason for that. And the reason for that is there isn't a rewards page on mobile, right? So not only are you limited as to how much information you can put on the rewards tab, you also just can't see it when you're looking at it in the mobile app. The only way to see what information is in the rewards themselves is to start doing the checkout process. And as you could imagine, a lot of backers may shy away from doing that because they don't want to accidentally back something they're not interested in, right? Or they're just taking a look at. So make it easy for them. So put that information in the story so that somebody on their phone can scroll through the rewards, get a good sense of what's on offer. And then if they're interested, they can decide to back. But if you make that barrier to entry that they have to start a checkout, you're going to lose a lot of backers. Maybe they select something, right? And then how do we handle shipping? There's 3 methods. The first, and one I've actually began to opt for, which we'll get in on the next slide, is all-in pricing. This means that you're going to factor in the price of shipping upfront, right? Like you're going to decide what shipping may cost you worldwide and factor that into the price. There is some risk in doing that, right? Shipping prices could change. You could get your calculation wrong. You could get a whole bunch of backers from somewhere that is very expensive to ship to. So I don't recommend maybe doing this on your first go because you don't have data to pull from. But if you have a good sense of where your customers are coming from, then you have a good sense of how much shipping is going to cost. I know for myself, majority of my backers are coming from the United States. And then the next set is the UK and Canada. So I'm in Canada. For me to ship to any of those destinations, relatively cheap and relatively easy to calculate. So knowing that, I can set a price, factoring in the price of shipping, and say, hey, get this comic for $20 Canadian and everything is covered. You're getting the book to the door. You don't have to do anything else. It's $20 in and out. If you want to be a little more selective, maybe you have an audience from all over the world and the prices of shipping just vary so much between them, then you're going to use the Kickstarter built-in shipping. Through that, you'll be able to set pricing per country. So what that means is you're going to say your comic is $10 Canadian or whatever your currency is, right? So let's say $10 and shipping is an extra $10 and you would price that out. So when somebody goes to checkout, it'll say $10. And then when they get to the checkout page, it'll add that $10. It's like taxes, like anything else. It's an added fee that comes only at checkout. It's nothing that people haven't seen before. If anyone's done any kind of online shopping, you know that the price isn't always the price you pay. It's an advantage you get with all-in pricing, and it takes a barrier away. Click the button. That's the amount. That's it. It's done. Where Kickstarter checkout's just more conventional. So there's not too much of a risk in going this way. You just don't get any advantage either. But you do get an advantage as a creator. As you're shipping far and wide, you know that the prices will be covered and you're not basing it on your estimates and your hopes that you set a price that's going to even out. And then the last option is post-campaign collection. So this is using a tool like Backerkit or Pledge Manager. There's a few that are available that do this. And what this will let you do is shipping is collected after the campaign by a third party. So this puts all of the risk on the backer, right? Like you're at a no risk point at this point because you don't have to charge for shipping until the campaign is over, right? So you'll have a very good sense of how much everything is going to cost because you can set those shipping rates live based on the day that you're ready to ship. That's the price, right? So you're not doing any estimates or anything like that. You're just passing on the cost of shipping to your backers. However, this doesn't always go over well with backers, right? I mentioned folks are already surprised when they get to checkout and see an extra fee. Now imagine you've checked out, you've forgotten you've backed to this thing. A month or more later, you are now getting a secondary bill for something you've paid for. And if you want to receive it, you have to pay even more. So that doesn't always go well. I know that backers don't love this approach, but if you're feeling very conservative, very risk averse, this is an option. You can go this way. It's available for a reason. Now, I mentioned that I would go one way over all of these, and there's a reason for that. I sent out a survey on my latest campaign asking folks, which method do you prefer? And overwhelmingly, over half of the backers said they just want that one price. They want that one click and checkout experience, right? They just want to know upfront, tell me how much it is and send it to me. So that's what I'll be doing going forward personally. And then, there's a quarter of the folks that just don't care either way. So I'm going to lump them in with the people that are going to get all in pricing. There's a handful that do want transparency and said that they would prefer to know exactly what shipping is. But again, it's if I'm getting, 3/4 of the people saying that either they don't care or they prefer all in, I'm going to lean that way. Just because, again, I think it's a lot less friction. It's a lot easier for someone to see a campaign and decide to back it. So here we are. So in terms of building a page and all that, one thing that's going to grab people's eyes is the video. You'll see on the side here, videos become more important than ever because now on the Discover page, you'll see that if you linger with your cursor over any of the pages, that video starts playing. So you have 2 to 3 seconds, maybe 4 to 5 if you're really lucky, to catch their attention, right? And have a video that really captures their eye. Because if you have something that's, just a talking head, hi, or anything like that, but you're going to want something a little more eye-catching, something that will make them actually follow through and click through to your campaign. So videos have become more important than ever. They're not a necessity. 80% of successful campaigns do have a video. Could be correlation instead of causation, but why, if you have the ability to put a video together, why not do it, right? There's no harm in doing it. So if it might give you even the slightest of advantage, I'd say go for it. And talking about risks and concerns and things like that. One thing that is a requirement when you are building your page is the risks and challenges section. In this section, you should be as transparent and forthright as possible. Let people know what you foresee may be an issue with this campaign. That said, you don't want to be overly negative here. The whole point of this is transparency, absolutely. But in that, you want to show folks that you understand that these challenges are coming and how you will overcome them, right? Use this as one more sales piece to say, yes, I am a first time creator. Yes, I live in this remote country that may be hard to ship from, but here's how I'm going to overcome it, right? I've worked with people. I've been published in anthologies. I've been an artist for a number of years, even though this is my first time on Kickstarter. Whatever you can do to mitigate any of the risks or challenges that you have listed, do so. But be very forthright. Tell people anything that may go wrong. This is the place to let them know. It'll save you some concerns down the road. All right. So the biggest part of this, building rewards. Let's get into the deep dive of that. One of the things that is available on Kickstarter is early bird pricing. So you can say for the first 3 days, I want to give everybody a $4 discount on my comic or whatever it may be, right? Like you want to cut the price for the first little bit. I typically recommend against this. The reason why is the people that will back you early on are your biggest fans. These are the people that would pay anything to support you. And although you want to reward them for being there early and give them something in return, you're also missing out on an opportunity to maximize your campaign, right? Like in part of them wanting to support you, they would also want your campaign to fund. And by giving your most likely backers a big discount to start, you are making that road so much harder to climb, as now you have to find folks that aren't your biggest fans to pay even more. And keeping that in mind, the folks that aren't your biggest fans will see that an early bird was available at some point and now they've missed out on it. So they were already not sure about whether to support you. And now they've seen that they have to pay a premium for not knowing about you. That may not reflect well. So again, you don't have to avoid using early birds, but just know that there are a few caveats, a few things to be aware of if you do this, a few risks even. So if you're a brand new creator, this may not be the worst idea, right? If you're coming out the gate and nobody's ever supported you before, maybe this is a way to get people in the door. But again, you still have those folks that'll come late and see that you've already provided someone a deal and now they're going to be punished for being late. So just keep that in mind that early bird pricing, although it's available, may not be something you want to use. That all said, you want to give something to your early backers, right? You want to reward them for being there early or returning backers, any of those folks. And for that, you set up special rewards, right? So I usually keep this pretty simple, but I always want to give them something. So if you have friends in the creator community that have digital comics, you can usually find groups that share their first comics or something amongst one another saying, hey, you can take some of my digital comics and you provide some in return. There's usually some exchanges that you can do to get these digital comics so that at least your early backers and your returning backers get something for joining on early. And again, it's not that early bird pricing that may set you back and force you to, may cause you to fail your funding goal, right? Like you're giving them something extra and ideally it's not costing you that much more to implement. If this is your second or third or more campaign and you have a bunch of old promo material, right? Or stretch goals or things that were included previously in some other campaign that you can add to this new one, this is a good opportunity to use that stuff too, right? Like just think, what little bit extra can you do to reward those people who are there every time? Some of it may be extra for folks. If they've been backing you every campaign, they're going to get the same kind of promo material over and over again. But again, if they're doing that, they're big fans anyway. And it's just a way for you to show your appreciation that they're there again and again. And hey, if they're getting doubles of things, maybe they're giving it to friends and you're expanding your base that way too. So let's talk about your core rewards you'll be making available. There's 3 tiers that I like to put them in. There's your entry level, right? Which is smaller items and things that don't cost much to ship, plus digital comics, thank you tiers, things like that. There's your main tier. That's going to be your comic, your variant covers, bundles of all your backlist comics, the meat and potatoes of your campaign. And then there's your premium level. These are things that are going to be only available on Kickstarter for this campaign. And they have really big ticket prices, right? You're doing your moonshot here. You're putting items in that if 1 or 2 people back it, that's your campaign. Like you're going to make your money here. And again, it's not something that I would rely on. It's something that you put in the hopes that if somebody is feeling really generous, that this is somewhere they would point to, right? So we'll get into each right now. So your first is the point of entry, right? Shipping is going to stop a lot of backers up front, especially if you're coming from somewhere overseas. Like it depends on where their location is. Sometimes shipping is just, it's too much. Even if you're all in pricing, again, hopefully you factored all these places in, but sometimes folks just don't want to deal with it, or they don't have space for all of your things, or maybe they're hiding a habit. Who knows what the reasoning is, but you want to give them something that they could still support the campaign without having to actually worry about a physical item arriving. That's where your digital comics come in, right? You could still ship smaller items too. I like to send out magnets and stickers and all that kind of stuff. I always have a tier called the grab bag, which is basically all of my promotional stuff that I still have. I put it all in one envelope and send it over, right? I make it a really low barrier to entry tier for folks that maybe they don't care to read my comic or my books or whatever, and they just want to get something to show their support. That's what this tier is for, right? I'll still send you something as a thank you, but maybe not the book. So that's what you're doing at this level. Digital is wonderful because there's no back end. So even sending stickers and magnets and all that, like you still have to have stickers and magnets, you still got to pay postage. If somebody's backing your digital comics, all you're doing is sending them a file. It's wonderful, right? That's pure profit. Digital backers, absolutely wonderful. Always provide it. I wouldn't worry too much about piracy and things like that. There's honestly nothing you can do to control it, right? If you're sending anyone any kind of art at any point, you're at a risk to be pirated, right? It's just a cost of doing business at this point. If you're worried that you offer a digital file and it's going to end up somewhere, just know that it's going to end up somewhere anyway. So you might as well cash in all you can with digital copies and give something a little more matter of fact to your backers, a little more thought through, because at least you're controlling what's being put out there when you're providing a digital copy, where if you send someone a copy and they scan it and like you can't control the quality that's put out there. So don't stress too much about piracy. It's going to happen. It's unfortunate. You hope that people won't. People are people. So don't put too much thought into it. Let's talk about the main comics you're going to put out. So this is all of your actual just comic and your variant covers and all of those kind of things. This is where most of your funding is going to come from. It's because the price is one, a little bit higher than your digital copies if you're doing it right. And two, it includes shipping, which Kickstarter does count towards your goal. So you're going to see a lot of the funding come in via this method over digital. Keep this in mind when you're doing your advertising and marketing, that this is the thing that you want to be selling more than anything, is getting comics in people's hands. Again, digital's great and you want to take advantage of that, given that there's no overhead. But realistically, what's going to make or break your campaign is going to be your main book and variant covers and things that come with that. So let's talk about that. The necessary evil of variant covers. There's a whole bunch of advantages to variant covers, right? As a consumer, you may not love seeing all the variant covers out there, and you know that there's just so much, and you go to the comic shop and every book has 20 variant covers. I wouldn't recommend going that crazy, but you could do a couple. I stick with 3 generally. That's been the number that I've seen do really well, that there's the main cover and 2 others. I went as high as 5 different covers with Crazy Latte Thing Called Love. Experiment. You see what works for you, what your audience is enjoying, what they're into. You get variant covers because, one, it's going to help catch the eye of a backer. They may not like your main cover, but maybe they like a variant, and that'll be enough to tip them over. They're so on your story. The cover doesn't do it for them, but they see a cover they really like. Maybe that tips them over into supporting you. The other thing too is, whether you're an artist or a writer, is a great way to build relationships with other artists. Most artists, even higher level artists, much more professional level artists, are more than willing to do covers, assuming their schedule and all that. And there is quite a cost to it. So don't feel like you can go to anyone and get like a deal. But realistically, like if you're ever going to work with some of the more popular artists, covers are where you're going to get to do it. So if you want to build those relationships, or you just want to build relationships with artists that you may work with in the future, this is where you're going to go. This is where you're going to do that. This is where you're going to establish those relationships. So variant covers, aside from this campaign, have a long-term benefit of you're building a working relationship with people. And more importantly, those artists are also going to help you sell the campaign. So you work with a big name artist and they go out and they start telling everybody that, hey, I worked on this campaign. I did this cover. I blah, blah, blah. That's huge. That's worth its weight in gold, right? So even if the cover costs you quite a bit, because you went with a bigger name, that bigger name is going to bring people in that wouldn't have otherwise showed up. So highly recommend just working with whatever artists you find and building up some variant covers. The other thing it's key for is you can build bundles. If you're a first time creator, then this is your first time on Kickstarter and you haven't done any books, so you don't have a backlist, variant covers are one way to do these bundles. Bundles are huge. Bundles, again, are going to be the main meat of your campaign. If people are buying 3 copies of your book rather than 1, that's going to get you to your goal so much faster, obviously. So having more to offer and providing a discount for doing so, right? Like you're not going to say it's $10 an issue and the bundle's $30. You're going to offer even more. And the whole point of Kickstarter is that each reward builds on itself. Typically what you'll do is you'll have your book and then some variant covers and then a package with all of them. And then you might do a package with the first issue, every book that you've put out if you have a backlist, right? And then you do another one that's all of the books. And you'll be surprised. Like if people are meeting you late and they want to catch up and they want to be a completist, having variant covers and having a set of books to sell makes a big, and again, you want to find artists with quality that these covers are worthwhile. They're not just, color palette swaps or anything like that. Like you want it to be something that's matter of factly different than the regular item that you're providing. But if you can show the difference and you can give people some variety, it really makes for something special that you can do in a bundle. And we went through this, we were talking 3 categories. This is the last one. This is the premium level, that it's items that are probably going to be exclusive to Kickstarter, whether or not they're something that you're doing within the production of it, or it's just something that you're offering services. That's what I do. Think of something that you offer the community, offer that as a reward, right? That, hey, you can get all my books, plus I'll help you letter your book, or I'll help you write your book. Or if you're an artist, the world is your oyster in this regard. You can draw them into the comic. You can do commissions. You could do a special sketch cover variant for them. There's all kinds of things you can do if you're an artist. Think of things that you can do that are unique for the campaign that they can't get anywhere else. They really need to feel the exclusivity to hit these benchmarks, these high level rewards. And yeah, anything that you can do to make it really special, that they're supporting you in this nascent stage where you're just getting started, that's going to be a huge benefit. Now, one type of reward that I don't always include, but I've seen out there, so I want to touch on it, is retailer levels. These are relatively risk-free. What you're doing is you're going to provide multiple copies of your book, 10, 20, however many you think a retailer might be interested in purchasing them. And you're probably going to provide them at about half price. Retailers are only going to take these if they can make a profit on them. So you need to really do a deep discount. The reason I'm saying that they're virtually risk-free is because you're not going to get a regular backer getting 10 issues of your comic for no reason. And if they do, that's fine. Maybe they're giving them out to friends, or who knows what they're doing, or they're just a really big fan and want to have 10 copies. Yeah, like you're not losing anything. Even though you're doing it at this discounted rate, you're not going to lose anything if somebody does back this, right? Don't necessarily do them at a loss, but keep that in mind when you're doing this, that for retailers to be interested at all, like they're expecting the discount that they would get from Diamond or Lunar or anything like that. Like they want a similar discount. So you have to do that in this tier. Me personally, I don't always do this tier because I would rather go to the store in person. It does limit your reach. I'm not selling anything south of the border in stores there for that reason, because I haven't been able to tour those shops and make those connections where I can locally. But I do prefer to go locally and talk to these people. But I do prefer to make that connection in person before I hand over my book. So totally up to you. This is a very easy reward to set up and an easy reward to fulfill, honestly. If somebody does back it, bonus for you. And again, helps you get to your goal a lot faster. So we've set up everything and now we are ready for launch date. First 48 hours. They're not make or break, but they're pretty dang close. You'll see it in the slide. And again, those of you listening, what we're looking at here is the first 2 days, you're making half, 2/3 of what you're going to make the entire campaign. If you have a strong start, it really makes your chances of hitting your goals and surpassing those goals much, much better if you're having a day one that really goes smooth. Not only that, but it does help expose your project to more backers, in the sense that the more people that are backing right away, it starts showing up as also bots and things like that, where people will get emails saying, hey, this person you follow just backed this campaign. Maybe you should check it out. It starts showing up in the bottom of emails. It really just tells the Kickstarter algorithm This is a popular campaign. Start pushing it. Like, people are interested. Start getting it out there. So starting strong, having that pre-launch page ready and with a lot of followers up front is key for this reason. These first 48 hours are a big deal when it comes to the success of your campaign. So when you start, what do? You call everyone. You go on socials. You let everyone know, hey, I've just launched. Now's the time to support. Please go support it. Please go check it out. Again, critical that people do it right away and they're on top of it and they're, supporting you however you can in these crucial hours. Yeah, call everyone, call your mom, call your friends, tell everyone. You don't have to charge your mom like I did. I made a mistake. I did not tell her explaining how Kickstarter works exactly. So she even backed my campaign, but it helps, right? It gets you closer to where you need to be. So call everyone, let people know now's the time, right? That thing I've been telling you about. The other thing you do is be everywhere. Start being a pest. Just be ready to sell. You got to be the door-to-door salesman. Be ready for people not to be interested. Say, I don't think so. I don't read comics. I don't, whatever, right? Like, you just have to be really used to people not being interested because you're only 1 in 10, let's say, if you're lucky, are going to be interested in your campaign. And that's okay. Just be ready for that and sell. Now is the time. The other thing you could do that might help, selling some ads, right? I'll get into why I put a maybe there. I used to be a little more adamant about this, that ads are required because, again, the way socials work is that unless you're paying, your word doesn't get out there. You can't just post and hope. However, Kickstarter is a little bit different in terms of how advertising works. Advertising is usually a bit of a long game. I don't know if you've heard the marketing term about, like, people have to see things 5 times before they absorb it. I probably got that wrong. The idea is people aren't going to see an ad once and be like, oh my goodness, I got to buy this. Like, it has to continually show up in their feed and permeate in their head before they even consider looking at the campaign. So you got to keep that in mind, that we don't have a very long road when we're doing a Kickstarter campaign. There's a very limited window, a month max, usually shorter. I usually stick to 3 weeks. And because of that, your ads don't really even have time to find the audience and to find those people that linger on it and that may click and that may purchase. So it is tough, but you can try it. The truth with this too is the more money you have, the better it's going to work for you. So you could dump a ton of money in here and really start seeing some results. It's there's also diminishing returns. The more you throw in, the less you might get back. So keep that in mind. But for ads to really work, you have to have a bankroll and you have to have time, and you certainly don't have time. So just keep that in mind, but still available. If you do it though, do not use the advantage audience. Why do I say that? That is built off of who you follow and who follows you. And those people may not be into comics. If it's your family, if it's your friends who don't read comics, if it's any of them, or maybe you're really into sports, maybe you're really into whatever else, that's going to be included in your audience. So it may not be the audience for your product. It'll just be your audience, your personal audience that it's factoring in. And as far as meta is concerned, if someone has seen it, if someone has clicked on it, success, right? And that's not success for you. Success for you is somebody actually clicks through and gets your comic. And that's only going to happen if the person who sees the ad reads comics. So keep that in mind when you're running these ads. The one thing I do say is Twitter ads, I would stay away from them. X, whatever you want to call it. I have seen that these don't perform at all in general. There's now a bunch of barriers to even getting ads launched. You have to be a premium member just to be able to set up an ad to then run it. I have never, in my 5 campaigns thus far, 4 of which I ran ads to prove myself wrong, and I've yet to be proven wrong. These ads do not work, so don't bother. Save yourself the grief, save yourself the money. If you're going to spend money on ads, I would start with the meta ads and then maybe Google ads. Amazon is meant for their own system, so I would avoid that in this scenario for Kickstarter. So Meta, maybe Google, and that's about it. And I was mentioning early on that I put a maybe in there for a reason. My latest campaign for From Parts Unknown #1, my ads did not perform at all. I got a lot of impressions. I got a lot of clicks even, a ton of clicks. I got 0 sales from those ads though. None of the click-through actually resulted in an actual purchase. Again, it was enough the art and everything on the ad seemed to be enough to get people in the door. But again, maybe it was targeting the wrong people. Maybe it's folks that don't understand Kickstarter, don't have a Kickstarter account. Who knows, right? Maybe they're expecting prices that you would have seen at your comic shop for Batman. And obviously, as an indie creator, we can't compete on price. Who knows? Who knows what the reasoning is? The clicks were high and the ads were low. The thing is, wasn't able to find the right audience. That is without question. It could not find the right audience to get those folks that would buy it. Usually in the past, all of my ads have at least been a break-even endeavor. So arguably my audience is expanding. That's not the case anymore. I don't know what's changed with the ads. So I'm a little more hesitant to run ads in general for this very reason. Now, the one thing I will always do, we talked about newsletters, how it's very important, and how you know that when you send something, it's going to hit this group of people. Your newsletter subscribers are key. These people are your fans. They are following you. They made a point to see what you're up to and read every week or month or whenever you send your newsletter, right? So if anyone is going to check out your campaign, at least give it a look, maybe give it a share. It's people who follow your newsletter. So let them know. And you don't want to just let them know when you launch, right? Like you want to prime your newsletter readers as early as possible. If you follow my newsletter, if you're on the Substack, again, very much appreciate it. And you'll know, right? I usually start with, here are the campaigns that are coming up. Here are the projects that I have coming up. And here's a little bit of insight as to where I'm at with them or how I feel about them or whatever. But I'm always letting them in on it, right? Again, your biggest fans are your newsletter readers. So you don't just want to be like, hey, go buy my book. Like let them in on the journey, right? As your fans, like they want to be taken for the same ride. So keep that in mind. Like reward them for being your fans and let them know that as my fan, now's the time I could use your help. Right? But you want to have it be a symbiotic relationship, right? You want them to feel like they're part of the journey because they are. They absolutely are. And yeah, you have to reward them appropriately. Now, when we're talking about social media, though, be as annoying as you can be, right? You can see if you're looking at the slide, you can see my calendar and how packed it is. If you're listening, we're looking at a calendar that every single day has multiple entries in it. And the reason for that, if any of you follow me on socials, I'm very active on there. And the reason being is because you don't know who's going to see what. I've had multiple instances where I have put up a post and I get a 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, because folks have only seen the post then, if at all. I've had cases where people didn't even know I launched because even though they follow me on socials and we've chatted about things on there, they haven't seen those posts. Like they're just missing them. So you don't know. If you feel like you're being too much or if you're annoying someone, just know that if somebody's going to unfollow you because you're annoying them, those people weren't your fans anyway. They unfollowed you because they probably had a waning interest in you in general. So they're going to unfollow you anyway. They were never going to back your campaign. So don't worry about those people. And the ones that are your biggest fans that are seeing everything probably are seeing it for a reason, right? Like they're enjoying it. They're liking everything. They're telling the algorithm, hey, I like this person. Show me everything they got to show. So yeah, just be consistent. Be on there as much as you can. Really, during the campaign, like you've got to be loud and you've got to let everybody know what you have going on and how they can help. And you can be everywhere at once, but if you're going to do that, I wouldn't do it manually. There are tools out there that'll help you. I use Publer personally. I've used Buffer. I've used Social Champ. I've been across the board. I'm with Publer now. Who knows, right? Depending on who has the latest improvements, I may jump to one or the other. Right now, Publer seems to be a good tool. I use it across social media, right? I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, all of it. I'm all over the place. And thanks to tools like this that I'm able to do that, right? Again, you don't always just want to be speaking outward. You want to be on these apps as well. So keep that in mind. If you're spreading yourself out a lot, like you want to still be part of each community. Don't feel like you have to be everywhere at once. But again, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you can manage, it does help because again, this is how you're going to make connections. This is how people are going to see you and get to know you. If they don't know you already, right, is through socials. Make it easy on them to find you. And that's what I'm getting at here. Like you want to be part of the community and you don't want to just sell. You don't want to just be like, here's my book, here's my book, here's my book. You want to be engaging in a way by having something different to say as much as possible. And you also want to just be like a person in the community. Talk about what comic books you're interested right now. Join in on meme trains. Just get in the conversations and talk with people, right? Be a person in this community. Don't just be a shill selling your books. Like you just want to have fun. So pick your favorites and like chat with everyone. Be a human being. Just bring yourself to the party and have some fun with it. Don't get too absorbed by it, but you really have to be part of the group, which is a theme I've been mentioning throughout this. Like, you're not just there to sell, you're there to be part of this community. So you've launched, you're out there on socials, and then you're going to hit the inevitable part of your campaign, the dead zone. This is something that happens to honestly every campaign. Even the most successful campaigns hit what they like to call the bathtub. So your first couple of days, as we mentioned, first 48 hours, key to your launch, end up being the biggest deal. That's where you're going to make most of your money. Then day 3, 4, 5, 6, as you go on, you'll see things really start to slow down. Some days you might have 0 backers. Some days you might only have a couple. You're not going to see a big uptick in backers unless you're really lucky or you happen to do something that really pushes a bunch of people to jump in the middle of your campaign. But generally speaking, it's normal for campaigns to slow down in the middle. This is something to keep in mind if you're going to do a longer campaign, right? Like, maybe you don't want to stress out for a whole month knowing that 26 of the days out of the 30 are going to be low turnout days. So keep that in mind when you're doing campaign lengths. But just know that the middle being slow is to be expected. So don't stress if that happens. How can you mitigate that a bit? Maybe by doing some find other people who are also doing campaigns and share their campaigns in your updates. Get out there and tell them, hey, here's some other cool stuff that's out there that I think you might be interested in, and share that with everyone. The idea being that they'll do it in kind for you and their campaigns, right? You really want to have people pushing each other and helping each other out. Again, whole point of the community aspect of this. And some folks choose not to do this at all. They don't see any movement. Some are pretty adamant that they push every book they can. It's really up to you, but it's a good opportunity. It's one, to get to know your fellow creators, and 2, to just help each other out. Maybe it gets you through that dead zone stretch. The other thing is giving folks something to look forward to. Maybe that first 48 hours was gangbusters and you hit your goal immediately. Now you have nothing to look forward to, really. That's where stretch goals come in. You're going to set a new target and say, if we hit the next number I make up, I'm going to add X to the campaign. I'm going to add X to your packages. I'm going to send you this digitally. Think of something that's within your means. You don't want to go nuts and add something that's going to basically blow the budget of your campaign. And again, even your backers don't necessarily want that. Like, they want you to succeed. They want this book to do well. Think of things that you can add to the campaign that are going to be a net positive for everyone. And that could be things that could be bookmarks or magnets or extra pages. It could be a different cover, whatever you could do within your means that isn't going to blow your budget. That's what's key. And give folks a target to hit. It'll help the ones that have already backed your campaign to push it more. And maybe those folks that are on the fence, knowing that their help will get you over the line, maybe that'll be the thing to convince them. The other thing you could do is, maybe there are people that are following your campaign and they just haven't been sold on it. They're just not into what you've provided quite yet. They almost like it, but it's, for whatever reason, something isn't catching their eye. That's where you can do pocket rewards. So what you do is, when you set up all your rewards, hold one back, save it for mid-campaign to say, actually, one more thing. And you pull that out, and hopefully those folks that were watching and lingering and weren't that interested, maybe this catches their eye. So make it a little bit different than what you were providing otherwise. Don't just make it something that's slightly different. Again, I'm always harping on folks who do different covers that are just a different color. Like, that's not what you want to do. It needs to be something that, again, somebody that was on the fence, this is going to be the thing that gets them off it. There's always a risk with this, though, because you're having folks go into their pledges and changing them. If it's someone who's already backed you and you're saying, hey, I'm going to add X to the campaign as a reward, maybe somebody wants that. And now you're having them go and tinker with their pledge. Maybe they forgot that they backed you. Maybe they, are having second thoughts now that they're seeing that price tag again as they're tinkering with their campaign. Instead of adding this extra reward or changing to this reward, they decide to drop you entirely. It is a risk. Every time you're having somebody basically do the checkout process again, you're risking them undoing what they've done. And they have that ability to cancel a pledge right up until the day you fund it. Keep that in mind. Pocket rewards, not risk-free, may give you a boost. So your mileage may vary. The other thing you can do mid-campaign to get your name out there is be on some podcasts. Get your face out there. Be on live streams, host panels or workshops. Just be everywhere you can. Keep in mind that podcasts are hit or miss in the sense of specific campaigns. Like, if you want folks to go and check out your campaign, it is a bit of a tall ask. If you're asking people to check out your campaign, you have to keep in mind that they may not be at their PC when they're listening. A lot of folks like to listen at the gym or in the car or somewhere where they're not physically able to hop on and support your campaign right then. So I usually treat podcasts and those experiences as more of a brand building exercise. I want everyone to get to know me personally so that when I have a campaign launching, maybe they help me out personally. Less that, hey, go join right now, go join this specific campaign that ends in 4 days. And hopefully you're listening the day that this podcast was posted. It's a big ask to get people to do it based on a podcast. So really what you should be doing when you join all these things is just trying to build your profile, right? That people know that you are a person that's always creating, that always has content out there, and you want people to support whatever the latest thing is. It doesn't have to be what is out there right now. And that's how you should keep your mind set when you're thinking about being on podcasts, right? It's not about you selling a specific thing. It's about you being yourself, and in doing so, selling yourself. And in selling yourself, you will sell your products. But the key thing is people want to support you as a person. And in supporting you as a person, they will support your products. So keep that in mind, right? Podcast, not great for current campaign, good for long term. It's all a long game. And if we're talking about that, I have a podcast with my friend Roberto Villacava. He's an artist. We have guests from all kinds of disciplines on, and we do a one-page comic together. It's a complete story. We don't know what we're going to do before we start. So we pick a prompt, and then we come up with the story right then, and then Roberto starts drawing it, and then we just talk about whatever. Like I said, getting to know you. That's the key thing, right? I usually don't recommend this again for live campaigns because we're usually 2 months in advance of when we're going to post your podcast. We're constantly building up this backlist of episodes. So it's more about you as a person that we want to have on. That said, if you're watching this and you made it this far, we would love to have you on. So there's a QR code on the screen, but if you're listening, instantinkpodcast.xyz. That's instantinkpodcast.xyz. Again, as I just mentioned, you may be on the road, you may be at the gym, whatever, but Google it, Instant Ink Podcast. And yeah, there's a link there that says, hey, I want to be on the show, and I'll send you a calendar invite. And yeah, we'll get together and we'll make a one-page comic together. And again, it's to raise your profile for people to get to know you and all of your work and what you're doing. So please come on and join us. It'd be great. All right. So we're through the dead zone. We're in the last 48 hours of the campaign. This is key now. So you'll notice when you are looking at your Kickstarter dashboard that there is the people that backed you, and then you have a number of followers. And those followers are all the people that are getting this email at 48 hours. And then again at 8 hours if they still haven't backed it. So they'll constantly be nudged by Kickstarter saying, hey, this project you're following is about to end. Like you're running out of time to back them. You should do it. And now with late pledges, they'll actually, if they don't back it, like you fund, the campaign's over and you have late pledges turned on, they'll get one more email saying, hey, you missed this yesterday, but you can still back it. It's those followers aren't worth nothing. They are the folks that make this bathtub thing happen. Because with these nudges, you'll start seeing pledges rolling in at the end. The people that were on the fence, these are the ones that show up. It's the people getting nudged. So very important that you're still collecting followers even as the campaign's going, because those are the people that they're seeing where their budget is. They're unsure, but now that time is running out, now's the time they'll back, right? And again, if we're at the end and we've hit all our stretch goals and we don't know what to drive people towards, pick something, pick a target, right? Say, hey, it's the last 48 hours. I would love to hit this number. I would love to have this number of backers. I would love to hit this funding record. Maybe you're breaking a record. Maybe you're saying, hey, if we just get this amount, that's the highest I've ever made. Give folks something to target. That's what the last 48 hours are for. So you really want to drive people to the campaign while there's still time. Say, now's the time. At least now or never. Please back it, because if you don't do it now, who knows what's going to happen. So you really want to give people, again, something to aim for. If there's a stretch goal, that's great. Point them to the stretch goal and say, hey, we're almost there. This would be great if we did this today. So keep all that in mind. And we're in the last hour of our campaign. So there's one thing you must do, because if you don't do it, it's gone. Save your analytics. For whatever reason, Kickstarter does not keep these live. As soon as your campaign funds, this disappears. So you want to do a backup of your analytics. If you're not a data person, I would still do it, because maybe one day you could use it for God knows what, and you can't get it. So definitely just capture this. You'll still have access to Backerkit. You still have access to Kicktraq. You will not have access to your advanced analytics. So you must back them up before your campaign ends, or they are gone forever. I've done it. I've forgotten. I'm still very upset about it because there's data in there that the other tools do not capture that I've now lost to the ether because I just wasn't paying attention and didn't download my analytics. Don't be like me. Just do it. Back them up and have them with you forever. Throw them on your Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox or whatever cloud tool you're using and just have them there, even if you never look at them. But you must capture them in the last hour. So your campaign's done. You did it. Well done. You've succeeded. And now we're trying to talk about what do we do? How do we proceed now? First thing you're going to do is you're going to send a thank you out to all of your backers. Thanks to everyone who backed. It means a ton. You're going to also speak to your aired backers here. There's going to be a handful, there always is, that their cards don't work. I've been one of the folks that I use a prepaid card and the prepaid card runs out of cash. And then I'm an aired backer. So this message comes out saying, thank you all for backing. To the handful of you that had some issues, please resolve this when you can. The reason you're talking to those folks over just celebrating is because they have 7 days to fix their pledge or you lose it. It's very important that they fix their pledge while they can or you lose their support. Be thankful that you were able to make a comic and now it's going to be a thing. It's real, right? It's been funded. Money will hit your account within 2 weeks. Just be very grateful. Let everybody know that you are. But the other thing too is you want to let them know what's to come, right? You want to tell them when you'll be shipping, what stage you're in, maybe. Let people know. Be the most transparent now. If the book isn't complete, where are we at? If the book is headed to printing, if the book is ready and just needs to be packaged, when it's just a matter of waiting on surveys, whatever stage you're at, this is where you share it and you let them know a timeline. Now that you have more information, now that you know what has to be done, this is where you tell them, okay, we're done. Thank you for supporting. This is what's coming next. And then the other thing you're going to do, if you weren't good about doing updates during the campaign, be good about them after. You definitely want to keep people updated to every time you hit any kind of milestone, the books are printed, books are in the mail, digital books have been released. Whatever milestone you hit, updates. It doesn't even have to be long. It doesn't have to be a huge thing, just enough to keep people in the loop. Because now that you've taken money from them, you want them to feel supported. You're no longer in sales mode, you're in fulfillment mode. So you got to keep people updated as to what's to come. The other thing you're going to do, I was talking earlier about newsletter. So a lot of people watching this, you may have actually been through it this way, where you supported one of my campaigns and I sent you a survey saying, hey, would you like to be a subscriber to my newsletter? And thank you for doing so. I appreciate it. But this is where you're going to collect a lot of subscribers. Again, these are your fans, right? They've given you their hard-earned cash to read your work. So maybe they're interested in reading more of your work for free. Your newsletter, if it's free, yeah, it's something you're providing and it's something you're rewarding your best fans with, right? Here's some insights into my process, my life, my whatever you choose to share on your newsletter. But again, this is how you capture your biggest fans. So, and you make it easy for them because you're coming to them and saying, hey, all you got to do is click yes and you're part of the newsletter, right? Make it super easy. But you can also ask some questions here. I added a question about shipping in one of my recent surveys that I shared earlier in this presentation. That's where I got this information, was asking, hey, now that you've supported this campaign, how would you like me to handle the next issue? Would you like me to do all-in pricing, or you don't care? Or would you like me to do transparent shipping prices? And you get a sense for that. And as you do that, you'll improve with each campaign because these questions help. So don't be shy about asking questions, but also don't make it arduous. 1, 2, 3 max in terms of questions. I would even make them optional if it's not something critical. Most folks will still, if it's multiple choice, they'll still choose something that if it's relevant to them. So don't be afraid to ask for questions. And then the other thing you're going to do is you're going to set up your post-campaign page. So now that your project has funded, nowadays you actually see a late pledges page, which is a little different because people can still actually back your campaign. But once you've sent out the surveys, your campaign page locks. Those late pledges are gone. And now you have a permanent home for your project. With that permanent home comes one link, right? Your back this project button is now a custom link that you can send folks anywhere. You can send them to your latest campaign. You can send them to if you have a personal store, you can send them to your newsletter. Whatever you think is most relevant, that's what you should stick there. Wherever you think you're going to collect the most value out of folks who are looking at your old campaign. So clearly there's some interest in you by them checking that. You want to make a link that's going to be most relevant to those people. I personally link them to my store. My store also has a link for the newsletter. But if you're looking at this campaign and you're saying, oh, this looks really cool, I wish I could get it, I send you to my store and you can get it, right? So it's pretty straightforward. It's a one-to-one relationship. But if you don't have a store, maybe you just send them to your newsletter and say, hey, you won't miss the next one because the next one have bundles available, whatever. So keep that in mind. You want to think of where would be the best place to send people, because this page, it's on Kickstarter from now until Kickstarter no longer exists. It's a permanent page unless they change something, of course, but your campaign is solidified now. Make it work for you. Think of where you want to send people. Do the little extra touches as well. Change the title, change the description, whatever makes sense. But really think about the fact that people that are interested in you may be looking at older campaigns and you want to drive them to join you on the ride on the new one, saying, hey, you missed this one, but there's always more coming. So keep that in mind. I was saying you're in like a fulfillment stage when you're sending out these updates and that. Let's talk about actual fulfillment. Sending digital copies out. There's a couple methods. One is the sending it through a message, a Kickstarter message. You don't send it through updates because that goes public. You can say backers only and that, but still, I typically don't prefer to do it through that. It also, I find the updates and messages hit differently. Messages always come as a like important in my inbox, where project updates, like skim through them, you might miss it. You could also provide links on both. But what I do when I do it this way, and I say that for a reason, I'll show you what I do nowadays. I put it everywhere I can. I've had backers that have problems with Dropbox, and then you end up having this back and forth to get it to them. I learned my lesson real quick. And what I do is I actually just duplicate everything. I have the same link available on Google, on OneDrive, and on Dropbox. This way there's no concerns about, I have a problem accessing Google, I have a problem accessing whatever. Just put them somewhere that your backers can get the thing they paid for. They paid for a digital copy, make sure they can get their hands on it and just send them a message, right? You can do mass messaging, anyone in certain tiers, and you can just send a message out like that. It's all still manual because that's just how Kickstarter is. So you still have to do it per group or there's only so many filters available on your backer report. And yeah, you're going to be limited in how you send these. So you're going to have to manually send out batches of messages, which is why I use this new method. I mentioned that as things get more complicated, as you have more rewards or add-ons, as you grow your following and you're sending out more and more packages, Backerkit becomes pivotal. I find that digital copies alone make the price of the whole thing worth it. Like more than anything, I love being able to distribute digital copies this way because it takes all of the manual work out of it. You upload your digital copies here and you say, if said backer is in this tier, they get this digital copy, and you can start parsing it. You can do your early backer rewards here. I usually do like the scripts to my comic as an early backer reward or a stretch goal. And so only certain groups get access to that. So when I'm talking about doing bundles, right, and you're providing your older comics as part of a bundle, you can say people that have backed bundle A, B, and C will get these digital rewards, and D, E, and F get these digital rewards, right? So it makes it so much easier. You don't have to manage all different kinds of cloud services. You don't have to worry about accidentally deleting it or something down the road. They're just part of your Backerkit survey. And the other thing is, once their surveys are locked, so they fill out their survey, you can lock it on your end and they get the reward. You don't have to worry about it. Like, it's done, it's delivered, it's fulfilled, you're happy. So I'm a big fan of the Backerkit for this reason over most other reasons. Highly recommended. Now, if we're talking about physical backers, I focus on Canada on the slide. Again, if you're listening, don't worry about it. But there are some tools that are available to us here in Canada. If you're in the US, Gemini mailers are amazing. Get your hands on some Gemini mailers. You will not have a problem shipping. In Canada, less capable of getting our hands on those, right? So there are options through Amazon. I also bag and board everything just to be extra safe for all kinds of reasons, but shipping being a main one. It's still not perfect. I've still had campaigns where, the odd package doesn't make it in one piece. Just be ready to always have a couple that just don't go right. They don't go as planned. It's part of doing business. So Don't be afraid of things just not going as expected, that you have to maybe ship out an extra copy or two post campaign. It's okay. And really, it makes a huge difference in terms of customer satisfaction, right? If your backers were really looking forward to this book and they get it and it's trashed, it's ripped open, it's bent, it's whatever it is, right? Like it's just destroyed. There's nothing better you can do than just say, yeah, I'm sending you a new one. Don't worry about it. So definitely keep that in mind when you're doing your budgeting as well. As much as possible, you want to make sure it gets them in one piece. Do what you can to reinforce that package and send it that way. And then key thing you must do is track it all on Kickstarter. Even if you're fulfilling everything in Backerkit, which is also important, you want to say whether the whole project's been fulfilled or not. It's more important to say that you've fulfilled it in Kickstarter, because especially if it's one of your first 4 campaigns, you are not allowed to launch the next one until the previous one is fulfilled. And they won't know if it's fulfilled if you don't say that you've shipped it. That includes digital copies. So if you've supplied digital copies, you're going to flip it to shipped and then it'll come up as fulfilled. So until you've fulfilled your latest project, you will not be able to launch a new one. And that includes pre-launch. You can't even get a pre-launch page up. So very important that you show that it's fulfilled. The other thing is you have to be a creator in good standing. That means when you launch a campaign, that people get what they paid for. If you can prove that regularly, if you could prove that 4 times in a row, then you can start doing overlapping campaigns, meaning you can have a campaign running and have one in pre-launch. You can't launch 2 at the same time. If you have one active, you can't have a second one active. However, you can have the pre-launch going on one while one is running, and you can be fulfilling another, right? So you can have up to 6 at a time that are awaiting fulfillment or in pre-launch all at the same time, with one running at a time, right? But to do that, you must be a creator in good standing, which means you've fulfilled all your projects. And that is not a permanent designation. If you fail to fulfill even once, you can lose that status and then you lose all the privileges along with it. But assuming you're early in your Kickstarter journey, you're probably within the first 4, just keep in mind, yeah, you can't do anything until the previous one is closed off, right? Everything is sent. Fulfilled means shipped though. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your backers have to have received everything. It just means that it's left your possession. You put it in the mail, it's going out. That's key. And make sure you update in Kickstarter so that you're able to do the next thing. And congratulations. You've done all of it. We did it. We launched the campaign. It was successful. People like it. People are reading your books. They're saying how much they love it in the comments and on your socials, and they're sharing pictures, and it's going wonderful and you're having such a good time. So now what do? Do it again. Start all over. You just keep this train rolling. You'll find more and more success as you're on Kickstarter. The best way to build an audience is to launch. And the best way to grow that audience is to launch again. You find that there's a bit of a snowballing effect with Kickstarter. The more you're launching, the more people that will see your projects and the more that grows each time. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's linear. It doesn't mean that you're always going to get more than the previous campaign. I can say, as a matter of fact, a Crazy Latte Thing Called Love hit a certain number. From Parts Unknown, didn't quite clear that level. Although Big Smoke Pulp, my current one, is now nearly surpassing Crazy Latte Thing Called Love with Days to Go. You'll see that there's a bit of a climb. It may not be a linear climb, but the hope is that you're always improving in some form or fashion. Maybe you get more backers, but the funding is lower, or the funding's higher, the backers are lower, or you get a ton of followers, or who knows. But you're always going to hope to see a bit of progression. And hopefully these tips and all of these things I've shared with you help get you there, right? But just keep it going, keep learning and keep growing and keep seeing what works and dropping what didn't. Keep growing, keep building, and it'll just start paying off in no time. So just stay at it. And with that, I want to say thank you for joining me. It means a lot. So if wherever you're watching this or listening to it, you already know how to contact me, but I'm Adriano at pestocomics.com. That's my email. I'm at Pesto Comics on all of the socials. I'm also at pestocomics.com, the website, pestocomics.com. You can find me there. Feel free to reach out. If I didn't answer any questions here, or if there's something you want to know that you think I might be able to help you with, please just reach out. I'm an open book. I'm more than happy to share. And yeah, I like your success is my success, right? If we're all doing well, we're all part of the same community. Some would argue we're in competition, but I think a rising tide lifts all boats, right? If you're doing well, then that helps me in the long run as well. So I want you to do well. Yeah. So please feel free to ask me anything that's on your mind, anything I can help with. I'm happy to do so. I'll let you know if I can't, but no harm in asking. I'm an open book. So Great to talk with you. Thanks for watching or listening if you decided to go the audio route. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, find me every Wednesday, wherever you're watching or listening to this now. And I'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks very much.